Welcome into No BS Fantasy Football. We're entering that time of season where every matchup, every game, every start-sit decision is magnified in its impact on your chances to win a fantasy football championship. So today, we're going to be looking at wide receiver starts and sits for Week 12 based on a stat that most other pages don't even consider, and that's the wide receiver cornerback matchup. We've got a couple players with easy matchups, even though they haven't been performing well lately, that will be solid starts for Week 12. We also have a handful of players with difficult matchups, some who are almost must starts every week that I think we need to leave on the bench. And I'll show you what I mean with our first player, Zay Flowers, who's facing Quantez Stiggers of the Jets, the 10th easiest matchup of the week. And he's a player so far this season a little bit underwhelming. We see 14, 12, 8, 14, 11, 12, 11. He's been pretty consistently not helping you win weeks like he did in week 1 and maybe in week 2 as well. But this week, he's facing the Jets defense. And what I was talking about where other pages stop is they go and they see, well, 16, that's a medium matchup, so I can expect about medium points. But this matchup is based on the entire season. When they had Quentin Williams helping out their pass rush, and when they had Sauce Gardner covering the best wide receiver on the team. When we look this week, no Sauce Gardner, no Quentin Williams, and an easy matchup. This is a week where I'm confident locking Zay Flowers in my starting lineup. Devonta Smith also has an easy matchup this week facing Reddy Stewart of the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas has consistently been one of the easiest possible matchups each and every week. And we see last week he had 1.8 points. He was supposed to have an easy matchup last week, but Detroit's defense, extremely well coached. They did an excellent job in that game, but Dallas defense really hasn't been showing up. They've been giving up huge points to these wide receivers. If you are worried about Devonta Smith, maybe you've got some other players like Chris Olave returning from bye. We're going to talk about him later. Michael Pittman Jr., we're going to talk about him later as well. I would rather be starting Devonta Smith in this easy matchup. As we get to our next two players, Jakobi Meyers and Parker Washington, if you guys have not hit that subscribe yet, make sure you do so you can get notified every time we post these videos. They are packed with the facts and data you need to make the best start-sit decisions possible for your team on the way to winning your fantasy football championship. We also post waiver ads, best defenses of the week, and next season we're going to be posting tons of draft content. Make sure you're subscribed to secure that fantasy advantage. They actually got dominated by the Jaguars in this game. They didn't really need to pass that much at all. And we look back at what Parker Washington has been doing: 10 targets, 9 targets, 7 targets, 2 targets. So as the team gets healthier, he has been lowering his targets a little bit. But this week, he's got a top 5 easiest matchup along with Jakobi Meyers facing the Arizona Cardinals, who I think will be a little bit more competitive than the Chargers were last week. Not specifically because the Cardinals are a better team, but because the Chargers struggled so much against what normally is a pretty weak Jaguars defense. This week, with the easy matchup, I think Parker Washington could be a flex play. Jakobi Meyers could be a flex player. Maybe you have players injured or on bye. I've got a couple other better options that may even be on the waiver wire, but if you don't have better options, if you're in a deeper league, I like Parker Washington this week better than last week because he's got the easy matchup. And speaking of players who may be on the waiver wire, Darnell Mooney is a must add for 2 reasons. Number 1, Drake London is injured. So if he's missing this game, Darnell Mooney gets promoted to the wide receiver 1 for the team. We also will note that last year, Kirk Cousins was quarterback, and we saw that Darnell Mooney, even with Drake London around, so many games of 14 plus points, 31 points, 19 points, 18 points. That was with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. He actually is getting a little bit of a quarterback upgrade for him individually. I don't know if Michael Penix Jr. had Darnell Mooney as a favorite target, but Kirk Cousins certainly did. If he is on the waiver wire, it's someone that you can add and plug right into your starting line. After DK, we've got one more player with an easy schedule. Then we'll get to those players with difficult matchups this week. They're not necessarily sits, but definitely want to consider that difficult matchup in your start to decisions. But let's first start with DK Metcalf, who's drawing the matchup against Nashawn Wright of the Bears. And the thing I like about this is that the Bears, we know that they have a lot of turnovers, but you also have to gamble a little bit. You have to take some risks to get the turnovers, and that can also lead to some big plays, which is DK Metcalf's specialty. Or in the red zone this year, he's been particularly good. We saw last week he had 5 receptions. Love to see that. Aaron Rodgers is trying to play in this game. That's the latest news. We may see Mason Rudolph. I don't really think it makes that big of a difference, honestly. Neither one has really connected with DK that much. But with the easy matchup against Chicago, who may be able to score some points against the Steelers, I do like DK this week as a flex option. And facing Deron Bland of the Cowboys, A.J. Brown draws the easiest matchup of the week. We saw that he's been complaining a lot in the media, and that got him up to his season high 11 targets in week 11. Still didn't do that great for fantasy football. Only 12 fantasy points, considering 11 targets. Not that impressive. 7 catches for 49 yards. But this week, it should be much easier. The Cowboys defense has struggled. Now, they did add Quentin Williams. I think that's going to help them a lot. He had a sack in that game against the Raiders. He's looked pretty good, but the Eagles are a totally different matchup here. I do like starting A.J. Brown this week against the Cowboys. Now, looking at the difficult matchups, Chris Olave has the 9th most difficult matchup this week facing Billy Bauman of the Atlanta Falcons, but he's still someone I am starting. We look at the targets with Tyler Shuck. I was definitely worried after this 4-target game, but then he has the 8 targets. It looks great. 30% target share. That's why you want to have the Walter Picks app, which you can get in my description, free trial with code NOBS. See all this data like receiving air yards, target per route run rate. And we did see 5 receptions, 104 yards, and a touchdown, plus the bye week. That is perfect for a rookie quarterback who's just taking over to have 2 starts, just enough time for a lot of film to break down, build some confidence, goes into the bye week for a chance to polish up any of those things that he's still working on and learning. This week, he faces the Atlanta Falcons, a pretty medium matchup, and a team that's been struggling, just gave up some huge points to Tet McMillan. I am going to start Chris Olave this week, even though he does have one of the tougher matchups. But facing Carrington Valentine of the Green Bay Packers, I might sit Justin Jefferson this week. We saw the last 2 weeks with J.J. McCarthy. These were supposed to be easier matchups. He had the Nashawn Wright matchup last week, one of the easiest possible matchups in terms of fantasy points allowed per route run. Only 11 fantasy points. 5 catches, 61 yards, no touchdown. With J.J. McCarthy at quarterback, he's had 2 very underwhelming weeks. Wide receiver 42, wide receiver 26, outside the top 24, even with amazing target share. 12 targets, 9 targets. That's not the problem. The problem is the connection, is the receptions, and we're just not seeing those. Then this week, he draws Green Bay, who's been excellent against wide receivers. We've seen them then shut down some of the best in the league. They're doing an amazing job on this defense. I'm thinking if you've got a Chris Olave, if you got some of these other players who do have more consistency and a better connection with their quarterback and maybe not so difficult a matchup, I may actually start them over Justin Jefferson this week, who overall, with J.J. McCarthy, let's look at the performances, 14.8 with a touchdown, 11 points with only 3 catches, 7.7, 11.1. This guy has not really been a starter with J.J. McCarthy at quarterback. We have enough data to show that this is a risky move to put Justin Jefferson in your starting lineup. Teammate Jordan Addison actually has the 4th hardest matchup facing Kayshawn Nixon of the Green Bay Packers as well. This defense overall has been amazing. I'm not going to start him either. We see that 8 points, 6.5, 10 points, even with a touchdown. Not reliable enough to put either one of these guys in the starting lineup. Extremely difficult matchup for J.J. McCarthy. It's a great week to start the Green Bay defense. Even if you don't have T. Higgins, there's some opportunity here for you because I've got 2 players maybe available on the waiver wire. You can start from this Bengals offense this week, but we'll start with T. Higgins facing Carlton Davis of the Patriots. So you do have to stop Chase Brown, but without Jamar Chase, who's been suspended for this game, I think the Patriots just double this guy. You just take T. Higgins away. You make sure he's not beating you, and then everything else gets a whole lot easier. That's kind of the Patriot way. We'll see if Mike Vrabel copies that strategy from Bill Belichick, taking away the number 1 wide receiver. I think it makes a whole lot of sense in this game with T. Higgins. So I'm still going to be playing him. He's been doing a great job scoring touchdowns. He's had amazing target share. Joe Burrow had a full practice this week as well. Very exciting there. I don't care who the quarterback is. I'm still going to start him because he's probably going to see 10-plus targets. But I wouldn't expect maybe this 33-point week or 21 points. He may be a little bit lower because it is going to be difficult to get him the ball with all the defensive focus. But a player you may add off the waiver wire, Noah Fant. The Bengals really use their tight ends when they don't have Jamar Chase. They don't have other players, especially if they're going to send doubles or a lot of focus T. Higgins' way. The other player is Iosivas. He may be on the waiver wire as well. We've seen some great target share games from him this season with T in the game, with Jamar Chase in the game. Without Jamar Chase, Iosivas can step up and be a decent option this week, especially if the Patriots send multiple players T. Higgins' way. He is available in many leagues, and so you may be able to plug and play this week with Jamar Chase out. We got teammates on top of the difficult matchup board with Michael Pittman Jr. facing Jalen Watson of the Chiefs. This is one of the most difficult matchups in the league. The Chiefs defenders have been absolutely excellent. We see 12.6 points is the projection, a lot lower than what we've seen for most of the season, but higher than what we've seen in his couple bad games against Denver, against the Cardinals, and against the Falcons. I would probably say this 12-point projection is pretty accurate. I like that 12 points because I'm not expecting a huge game with the difficult matchup against the Chiefs, but I still think he can get a couple catches, 6 catches for 60 yards. Doesn't seem too unreasonable. So if that's good for you and you like the upside that, yeah, maybe he gets in the end zone, you can play Michael Pittman Jr., but he's not a must start this week if you do have some other good options. Number 1 hardest match of the week goes to Alec Pierce facing Trent McDuffie of the Chiefs, who's actually been pretty awesome. Alec Pierce has been lately. 14 points, 9 points, 17, 18 points, almost 100 yards in a couple of these games, and the target share has been amazing. You can see him really stepping up these last 2 weeks, 91, 94, 13 targets, 7 targets, about 25 or plus % target share. That's pretty strong stuff for Alec Pierce. The schedule gets pretty brutal, by the way, guys, for both Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce. But I do think you got to lower the expectations a little bit. Right around this 9.7 points, I think that's pretty safe. But for him, it's that one big play that we're looking for, that 40-yard touchdown play. Definitely possible against the Chiefs, who would definitely need to focus in on Jonathan Taylor. That's got to be the number one priority. So getting guys down the field in one-on-one, definitely possible. Pierce, if you've been starting him, you probably can continue to start him this week, but consider him a little bit lower priority with this most difficult matchup. That is no BS Fantasy Football. Hit that like and subscribe to get the same video every single week all the way up to your championship. Drop any start-sit questions, trade questions you have down below in the comments, and let's win a fantasy football championship together.